Welcome to Leadership Within, the moment for leaders to reflect on their human experience of leadership. I'm your host, TK, and I'm joined by
Vanessa.
And the wonderful neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
Which is actually something I wanted to talk about today. Not necessarily dogs, because I'm not necessarily an expert, but it is a wonderful segue to the topic of the conversation. Because as we were prepping for this episode, as we were talking before pushing the record button, Vanessa and I were talking about, there's this, barking dog outside, and it's not going to be slick. It's not going to be fully professional because you'll have this barking sound on the outside. And what I wanted to segue to is the fact that, well, as leaders, quite often, hopefully, depending on your style, there might be a situation where you're in a vulnerable place, when you might need to say, I don't know, or ask for help, or say that you do need help. And as leaders, or, even decent professionals, we are being trained on, the joys of executive presence, having the right pose, talking in the right tone, having the correct posture when recording, and having a good sound quality. But when we're in a vulnerable place, that seems cryptic and authentic in the moment where we should be authentic, actually. So the question is, how do we square the circle between these two things?
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because
we're
right? Often, trained to be professional, which has us be outside of ourselves a lot of the time. So yeah,
I would love to unpack this particular word, professional, right? It means something different for many people. Of course, there's this, let's say, agreed upon cultural norm of professionalism, possibly different in each profession. But I find this word overused as much as I find many people saying that AI doesn't have the human factor. Yet when it comes to defining it, like defining professionalism, it is a difficult one, isn't it?
100%. And I think, alongside defining authenticity, I was on can I share something? Because I was on a call.
Well, that's what we're here for.
The other day, and someone was sharing how they had like incredible self-awareness about their reactive self and their conditioned self, and to the point that they are like, well, who is my authentic self? It's like so much awareness that almost it was paralyzing, because it's a thought about, well, who do I need to be authentic? Which is kind of not the point. But, I think authenticity can be one of those words that we can get really in our heads about it. And really, it's a felt, like, when I think about times when I've been authentic, there's a felt sense with it, a freedom, a looseness, a permission, all those kind of things. How about you?
Well, I actually thought about the definition, and, it's just something I came up with at one point, which is being your authentic self means being the way you are when you don't manage yourself. Which is sometimes you don't have the capacity of managing yourself in a difficult situation. When you are really feeling vulnerable or too busy, or, in a certain emotional state, heightened. So at that moment, many people show a face they do not appreciate. Right? Show up as reactive. But then again, maybe the reactive side of us is the root, which is the root of our authentic self. Now, I'm not saying that, we should not, if we're not happy with our behavior or the way we are as authentic selves, we're always a work in progress. But there are times when we do show up as ourselves. Sometimes it's in the bliss of happiness, sometimes in the fire of anger.
So how are you showing up now?
Well, it's a good one. Well, we're here. We're on a podcast. I'm on my big microphone. trying to sound eloquent, and yet I'm
Is
showing
that
up
authentic
with.
or not?
Well, I think it is. It's also interesting from the point of view because I believe I share the things I'm passionate about. Yeah, I might not be swearing as much as I authentically might be doing, and it's like, well, is this my real accent that I was born with? Obviously not. It's, one would say it's my second language. How authentic is that, right? Am I mimicking someone on the BBC? Well, as much as you ask yourself these questions, I would say that I'm reasonably authentic in these conversations. As I think you are too, because we are discussing things and sharing thoughts that we feel passionate about, and this is our show, isn't it?
But it's
That's the
really,
moment of authenticity.
yeah, and it's really interesting what you're saying because you're making me think of all the times when I've been in, say, facilitating some leadership development program, and we've asked people to really declare something, like, okay, flip over a sabotaging belief and now really claim an empowering one. And often you can sense the lack of congruence when English isn't their first language. And so we will often say to them, say it in your language. Like, I don't need to understand it, but I need to feel it. Like, we all need to feel it and you need to feel it. So say it. And it has such a difference. Yeah.
It does, right? Because, it is an incredible line of thought that we can continue actually, because it goes into like, why is this a problem? Why me adopting a certain accent instead of the accent I came up with when I arrived in London? Why me getting, trying to sound, and maybe it wasn't conscious, or maybe it is, trying to sound like the people I want to associate myself with. On one hand, isn't authentic. And if I am, displaying this certain manner of speech, while being vulnerable, some might say, well, he's just pretending because obviously it isn't his natural accent. And to be honest, whatever you say about my accent, I can hear it with others. It's like, well, that's not how he normally speaks. There's the Polish Foreign Secretary, Radosław Sikorski, and he has an awful way of speaking with a vocal flair when you think about this. It's like, no, he's a decent guy. You don't need to do that. And, it just sounds inauthentic when he's speaking in English. And I think it's a huge problem if you, use a different channel. If you, for instance, have, as an example, at one point, I have a nice setup of my camera and microphone and everything. And I thought, no, I'm not going to use it on daily calls because it's like I'm dressing up too much. I should use a normal webcam that a potato quality one, because using this professional lens and everything just, would put people off. I will just look inauthentic on a normal Teams call.
So I notice I have this urge to invite you to say, hello and welcome to Leadership Within in your native language.
Well, I might need to prepare for that. So I have to do it now. It's interesting because, it touches on compartmentalizing language in my head. So I need to switch off and because it's actually more complex than you think.
Okay.
So now I need to step out. I need to think that you're not there. Because obviously it now automatically switches my language, part of my brain. All right. So I'll try. I have to, really even not look at the screen. Cześć. Witam Was w podcaście dla liderów. Leadership Within. To moment, w którym jako liderzy możecie zreflektować się, pomyśleć o Waszej ludzkiej stronie przywództwa. So that was it.
Wow.
I really had to do my best to really disconnect myself from this environment to say that.
So I notice that you still have the inflection, and the tone in your voice, but there's more dance and energy in it. To me,
well, I guess it's a matter of language, possibly, right? The real question is, it's. I guess it's a bit of a rabbit hole, one would say, right? How language shapes us, the way we think, the way we express ourselves. There's a nice science fiction movie, The Arrival, I think, and many other works of art and philosophy saying that language actually shapes you. And the way you show up in other channels, the way you dress, the way you stand, the way you behave in any other way, shapes the way you are. If you have a confident posture, right, the superwoman, whatever, however, whatever you want to use, or you just dress up really sharp and then just cry and ask for help, there's the incongruence that people might have.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? I've been looking at a couple of LinkedIn videos today.
Oh man, yeah.
And not for any reason, they just popped up in my feed, and I thought, well, I'll give
that's
it a
what
look.
they do.
And I notice, and this is definitely a me thing, but I have a real, almost like an allergic reaction to corporate style videos, like that very professional, like the women wear almost like, and there's a company over here called Fold, very kind of tailored dresses, and everything looks very staged, and that even the hug looks quite staged. You know what I mean? And I notice I just like, I have this now reaction, like, not me, like, ugh, no, and I've been thinking about this a lot, because one of the edges in my own marketing of my business has been this thing around being too corporate versus being Vanessa that shows up in the room or on the phone or on Zoom or wherever. And, something can happen where, and I've noticed it in my videos, where I can suddenly become stiff or slower or more enunciated. And it's like, and English is my first language, but there is definitely this almost like I've got to present myself in a palatable way, and I think I'm definitely on that. No, I've done that. That's not me. And if you're buying that version of me, you're not going to get the best me. But I still have it.
And yet it's still there, right?
Yeah,
you still have it. And as do I, right? Even when you asked me to speak Polish, it was actually quite difficult to do, and to really disconnect myself from the situation, not think about that. It changed my entire persona.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you for doing it. I mean, clearly it was something I just threw in there, but
no,
so it was a big thing for you to do, and thank you for that. And it really gave me an appreciation of like, wow, how smart is this guy that can like almost go to a different part of his brain to speak and think in English. I mean, like, that's amazing. I can't do that. I don't speak a second language fluently.
I'm sure you would, and I think that's many, as I always say, when it comes to certain countries, in certain situations when there, for instance, armed conflicts, people learn languages quite quickly, and I think that's a natural part of ourselves, and I think everyone has it. And it's just a matter of, moving the old cogs. That being said, what I wanted to maybe highlight is the fact that what you said is like, you want to make yourself more palatable. And I guess, that's going through many people's minds. And is it that people feel like, maybe I feel like or think that me speaking Polish is unpalatable? Right? Maybe somehow we've been taught, or
yeah. But you see, so you're so not alone. There are so many development programs I do, and the majority have been with women, and particularly I notice it in the Asia Pacific region, where they will apologize for their English, or they've met with people that say my English isn't good enough, or I cringe when I hear that, to be honest.
What happens when you learn language at school, right? When you learn how to show up and dress in a corporate training, when, you learn how to use your microphone from a YouTube video. That's what happens. If we're not living the real life, but some fantasy that's being sold to us.
But if you went back and you looked at, I remember once. So I worked for Virgin Atlantic for a while, and there was this, kind of poster of all the different uniforms, of airlines, right? That over the years, and you could see how that had changed with the times. And I was just thinking, if you looked back at corporate people in the 40s and 50s with their bowler hats and their briefcase. I mean, I remember, gosh, this shows my age, doesn't it? But I remember for like my 18th birthday or something, or Christmas or something, I got one of these tapestry suitcases, like not briefcases that actually had a number code on it. And I just thought, like, wow, I never ever used it ever.
Exactly.
But, the idea that suddenly I was stepping into a professional person. And I can remember, this is the worst one, where I worked in hotels to start with. And when you were on reception, you used to have to wear bows, like on a string. I was just thinking, oh my God, it's nuts, isn't it? Really, now you'd think, like, what?
Times change, right? Whether for good or the other way. One would say that, we always look at history and mostly people are surprised, yet things return. What I think is interesting is if you are in this corporate environment as a leader, and many leaders are, as an example, right, there can be different environments like, third sector, religious, and so on. But, focusing on the corporate one, as an example, you're being submerged, drenched in this. And, how do you know to get out of it if you even want to be authentic? If you agree with us, the authenticity is the most important thing when it comes to showing vulnerability. Like, where do you find yourself? Where are you?
I think that's a challenge. And as I said, the person I was talking to, they were really challenged by that. And I mean, because you are so much more than the professional persona. I mean, it was interesting. If I go back to your definition, I wrote it down because I thought it was a very good one.
Oh, thank you.
Being the way you are when you don't manage yourself. And it's like, wow. So the idea that there is an internal manager in my head who is saying, Nessa, you need to change your tone. You need to hold back. And I mean, someone said this to me today. I was telling them a story and they said to me, yeah, you maybe want to keep your head down on that. No, maybe I don't. Like this idea that somehow by holding a part of us back, we are going to perform better. It's fascinating, isn't it?
I mean, absolutely is. But sadly, that's what's expected.
Yeah, it is.
Not behaving in this particular way, not having this, internal manager that tells you that, silence is golden while speech and words can only be silver. Yeah, it's being perceived as, unprofessional. Well,
if you had a choice, if you think about your internal manager, would you, if you were conscious of the choice that your internal manager is managing a freer, more authentic part of you, would you follow your internal manager? Does that question make sense?
It does. It does. But it's not up to me. See, I think that, I'm actually at peace with my manager and we often negotiate and reflect together. What I will say, though, is it's there to protect me because the unmanaged TK may not always be accepted and as successful in, having the life he wants, than the one that, maybe limits some of his ideas, not his or hers, it's me. So there you go. Right. So what I mean by this is the fact that, well, I'm more than happy to be open about it. There are situations when people are accepting and, even appreciating that. And maybe you could say that I should be working more with these people that accept the real me where I don't need to hold back, for instance, my opinions, never mind the language or the way I dress. Yet, it's not always easy to find yourself in this situation, isn't it, Vanessa?
Yeah, I mean, and I think I had the reflection the other day. Sometimes I question my values. Like, I kind of think, okay, I can be really in my head about, I've picked these values and I'm not sure I necessarily massively consciously attuned to them, particularly when scarcity is running things. But so I've been
Oh,
questioning
yeah.
that quite a lot lately. And one of the things that I concluded the other day was, because someone said to me, what is it you want, Vanessa? And I
Hmm.
was like, adventure. I want adventure. And I've been thinking a lot about my life could be a lot easier if I wasn't a self-employed coach. Like, there are lots of things I can do that I could earn a regular wage and have benefits and regular holidays and all those things. But something compels me to not do that. Something has me. And I was thinking, well, what is that thing? Because there's obviously a value in there. And
Hmm.
instantly it was like freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom of, and, and, I don't think I ever grew up consciously thinking, I want to walk a free path and I want to be self-employed and blah, blah, blah. I think I grew up feeling the opposite of that. Like, I wanted to impress and please and prove and make my parents proud and all that kind of stuff. But I've definitely got to a stage where I can now see that the kind of rebellious part of me has actually been the kind of stronger part that has come, particularly after I had kids, came through. And so I've kind of been thinking, okay, so I think I do have a value of authenticity, but I think freedom is probably the highest value that I have. That and kindness. Actually, I really think kindness really matters to me. But you know, the world, for example, if you took that value and I'm trying to be authentic, I don't think the world always appreciates kindness, or recognizes it or sees it or embraces it. And so I suppose what I'm saying in a very long winded way is just to be authentic, I think we really have to be self authored.
Yes. Wonderful words of wisdom, Vanessa. And I think what I thought as you were saying that is how sometimes it's difficult to be kind enough and authentic. In my situations, for instance, there are moments when I really want to rip and tear, when I really want to, no, this can't be it. What are we doing? This is wrong. This is, and swear to high heavens on a given process, on someone's work being, of poor quality and so on. But where's the care, empathy? Where's the kindness in that? Right? That
Yeah.
someone might have had as difficult. That these processes might be there because people are overworked. That people do their best. The demand on them was just too much. No one supported them, and it's easy to say, this is just absolutely ridiculous. It's a zoo, right? Because and you can have proper examples, and you want to shout them out, but yeah, for me, it's like this empathy and kindness, this understanding that sometimes by expressing your feelings authentically, for instance, when it comes to anger and frustration, yeah, you might hurt someone even if they're not in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I have realized that the biggest out of the four agreements, that book, The Four Agreements, the
Oh
hardest
yeah,
one for me is
yeah.
not taking things personally. Well,
Oh
and
yeah.
of being impeccable, like that. They're all hard, right? They're all practices in different ways. But I think that what I see a lot lately is people taking things incredibly personally
Mm.
because there is some kind of ouch that's got triggered in them. And I recognize that in myself. So I'm not saying I'm immune to this and I've got this down at all. But I do think, like, wow, if I could find the freedom to fully be myself and to not take things personally, then my leadership would benefit from that.
I know what you mean. But yet, the only people that can give us this freedom is ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? That's the work in progress.
Yeah.
And as we hope you, our listeners, are also reflecting with us, possibly sharing some of our challenges. And with that, we hope that we'll see you again, possibly even in the new year, Vanessa, because, we're nearing Christmas. So maybe that's a good time for reflection, isn't it?
Yeah. Wishing you
have
all
a joyous break.
Christmas. Yeah.
And Merry Christmas. See you soon in the next episode of Leadership Within.